Alright, so we've got the sheath or saya shaped up the way we want it, and the next step is to work on the kurikata. Now this is kind of an alternative step, as an aesthetic look. It's very helpful if you plan on putting a sageo knot on it, like so. But it's not real hard to make, and I suggest personally that you make one. Here's one that I have done on a previous, it's just another wood blade. But you can see that it just adds a little bit of a nicer look to the sword. You can tie the nice knots on it, and it just really completes it. So for this one, it's going to be the same deal, except it won't be on this one. You can actually see it's just a simple loop that I had made, glued on it the 2 points. We're going to try and do something a little different for this model. So for this particular sword, I've got this all nice and ready to go, the saya itself. And all I've done is I've glued up 2 pieces of 1/4-inch wood that are as wide as your saya is going to be. Mine is actually 1.5 inches from front to back, so that's the same width as the saya, and it's going to be just under 1 inch tall. And all we're going to do is we're going to shape the bottom of this to fit flush with the top of the saya, and then cut out a hole for the actual sageo to go through when you're tying your knots. But I'll chart the progress as I go through it. But what we're going to be doing is, like I said, gluing the 2 pieces together and then carving it out as we like it. It's going to be an aesthetic thing. The thing you want to know, though, is that these were mounted on the outside of the saya, as if it was being worn on your left. So as you can see here, the blade is on the top, as if it was being carried on the left hip. And then I have a mark here, 4 inches down from the top of the koiguchi. So 4 inches down, and it's going to be right on center about. And you can change that up or down or not. I just found 4 inches to look really nice. It's the way I like it. But again, like I said, with the blade facing up in the saya, it's going to be on the left hand or outside face of the saya. So, like I said, first step, glue 2 pieces together that are the width of your saya, and probably about 1 inch tall. You may want to leave it a little bit longer, and that way you have a little bit of extra worry room. So if you want to change it, you can do that. But yep, as wide as your saya and about 1 inch tall. And I'll get on to showing you the next step. Alright, so I've carved out the bottom of this kurikata piece I'm going to be putting on. And you can see, I just wanted to show you that when you're looking at it, you can see there's a gap there. It's not perfect. And, that's okay. And I'll tell you why. Because what we're looking here for is glue coverage, glue surface area, so that this knob isn't going to come off later on. So as long as you feel like there's enough surface to glue down, on the sides, like in my case, and not so much in the middle, that's going to be alright. As long as the glue strength, is going to be enough to keep it there. And the only other thing you gotta pay attention to is, the aesthetics, for that matter. And, to make it look nicer, you can just, we'll be able to put some wood filler into that little gap, and it'll look fine once it's all done. Now, if you're not going to paint your saya, obviously you do have to pay attention to that little gap and try and minimize it. But for all of you people that are going to be like me painting this, a little wood filler will go a long way in that little gap. And it's not really worth sweating over. It's kind of like shaving your sideburns. You start on one side, and if you go on the other side a little bit too much, then this side has to come up, and then your middle's too shallow, and so we don't want to get into that little battle. So don't sweat it if it's not too bad. It looks pretty good, as long as you have enough glue coverage. But there it is. That's the bottom's carved out, and now I'm going to take my hand drill and drill a little hole in the middle there, and then I'll use my coping saw, stick my coping saw blade through there and cut out a little oval shaped hole. And I'm going to try and go a little bit closer to the edge. Again, I'm trying to make this pretty low profile so it doesn't stick out very much. Another quick note is since probably none of you have started this yet. Basically, how they typically do these is they actually make a groove, or they cut a trough on the saya and carve it flat, and then they just have a flat piece. Instead of carving this side out, they actually carve a notch basically in the side of the saya and stick it in there so you have a flat surface. And I'm assuming so that this can't slide, or it has some wood bracing it from side to side forces like that. And the reason why I had you do it this way is because we're already working on a blind application here where we can't see just how deep we're going to go. So I'd hate for you to go too deep and break into your actual saya and you know, ruin your saya or have to do some repair work. So this is just the safer alternative. But yeah, so once you have that, you know, bottom carved out, whether it's perfect or not, don't glue it down yet. Don't do it. Don't do it. But cut out this little circular space. I'm going to do like an oval. It's going to be about 1/2 of an inch wide from left to right here, and probably 3/16 or so tall. But again, I'm going to try and bring it down pretty close to where it's going to meet the top of the saya, just to keep this whole thing kind of low profile. But I'll show it to you when we get there. Alright, so on the Kurikata, as I said, I've shaped out the bottom, and I've got the hole through the center cut out, and I basically just did a fairly large oval. It's a little bit wider than 1/2 of an inch, and it's just a bit taller, probably 3/16 at its widest point. I'm still working on it a little bit, trying to smooth this out. You can see I've got a little notch there, but that's enough for my shigeo to go through. And obviously the other change I've made so far is to kind of trim these edges up so that it's, you know, more of a shape there. And I just want to tell you what my plan is for this, if you're going to follow along exactly. Basically, these edges here are going to be fairly, I mean, I got to get them more so that they're the same exact angle on both sides here. But I'm just going to do a straight angle up to about halfway where my hole is here, where my slot is, and then I'm actually going to round it over following the curvature of the cutout. So it's going to be a straight angle right to here, and then this whole corner is going to go, and the whole thing's going to be rounded over to follow the shape of the curvature of the hole that I've cut out. And that's just, again, to kind of keep it low profile, and you really can't, you know, you can't really hide the fact that it's sticking out of the side of your saya, and it's really not a problem. You know, I'm trying to make it as low profile as possible, and see what I can come up with. Now you can see on the outsides here, it's not quite a good fit. So what's going to happen is I'm going to do shaping of this to get it where I want it on the top curvature here, and shape up these sides nicely, and then I'm going to glue it down to the top of the saya. And then I'm going to have to do some final shaping, trying to blend this edge into the top of the saya. Same on the other side. And then do some final sanding of everything. And then where I can see a joint, see that hole right in the middle that we've talked about already. And on here, if there's some trouble blending it, I'm just going to stick some wood filler in there and sand that down nice and smooth. And then we should be pretty well done with the Kurikata at that point. And I've got a knot work video in the works, or a tying video in the works, where I'll cover some shigeo and cover some handle wrapping. But yeah, so we're almost done with the Kurikata. We're just gonna finish shaping this in a general fashion, to glue it down, and then do some final shaping. So we've got the Kurikata in pretty much its final state. Like I said, it's been glued down. I've got the edges that I wanted lined up with the edge of the saya. Came out pretty well. I've still got the little final touches to do on it. I still have to do a little bit of final shaping here on the hole around the Kurikata. And I need to do a little bit more work. I'm right within the autofocus. Gotta do a little bit more work on the chamfers I put on the edge. And I didn't just want this big 1/2 inch block sticking out of the side. So after doing this sanding part of it, I also put some chamfers along the edge, and be cleaning those up a little bit so that they're nice and straight. It's really important whenever you do a straight line part of a carving that you make sure that your lines are really crisp and your surfaces are flat, because as you can see in the light here, it kind of betrays you a little bit if you've messed up at all. So just kind of when you're doing straight lines like this, just make sure you turn it around in the light and just see what the light reveals for you. But that's pretty much it. I mean, just kind of give you an idea of what it looks like, from afar. Doesn't stick out too much. I might widen up that hole a little bit now that I've seen it. But other than that, all I have to do is fill in the cracks and, like I said, crisp up some of my lines, and we're good to go on the saya. The saya will be done and ready for paint once you get that cleaned up. Now, I just want to have one final note on the whole saya, and that is down here at the end. For the end, I just leave mine just a clean cut square end, butt end. But you've got several options here. You can just put a chamfer around the edge, a little 45-degree angle along the edge, just to kind of give it a little bit more detailing. You can leave it flat like I'm going to. You can just, I lightly round these edges, but other than that. But you can chamfer it, you can round it over, you can round it over in profile this way. I've seen them done that way, so it kind of matches your kashira, your end cap. So you've got a few options here. Just do what you feel looks best. I find that I just like this clean cut edge, regardless of what my kashira looks like. I just feel like this completes it, makes it look better than just rounding it over in profile or anything else. So that's why I went with this. And of course you have to remember what you have for a thickness down here, because remember I had you leave quite a bit extra beyond the tip of the sword, so you kind of have to see how much you have left over. So make sure you do that so you don't ruin it now at the end and go through and have to do some patchwork. But yeah, so that's pretty much it. That's the saya. We're going to paint that up, and then we'll be ready to show off the finished katana.